inside the Huron quarantine. Colonel Taylor and the Ministry of Defense have lied to you. There are still survivors inside the walls. They plan to firebomb Huron.
If you asked me what my favorite game was a few years ago versus today, I probably would have given you the same answer. Dying Light. Because if you couldn't tell from the video, that's what we're talking about today. The game has etched its place into my heart and my mind, and there's so many elements that keep drawing me back to it like every single time to replay it. The parkour, for instance, the main mechanic drawing in people, allowing you to effortlessly traverse the terrain at a high-speed pace. The famous night mode, separating the filthy casuals from sweaty tryhards. If you couldn't tell, it's me. If you couldn't tell, I'm me. The combat system, fluent and powerful, almost like the keyboard or controller knows what you're going to do next and makes your fighting abilities much more powerful, whether laying waste to the enemies with melee weapons, or ranged weapons, or shooting the crap out of it, or just bang, bang, bang.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
It's the only game that I can say, without a doubt, I love from beginning to end, and it still draws me back in to replay it again today. Seeing how much faster I can get my skills upgraded, how many zombies I can take down at a single time. And I can tell the team behind it, the game loved it and had so much passion for this game. It remains one of my favorite games of all time, and I just want to say thank you so much, Techland, for not just taking my money, but taking my heart as well. So, obviously, when I heard development had started on the second game in the series, I did what any normal person would do. Completely lost my marbles. I was still all for it. Like, I had nothing but high hopes for this game, and absolutely couldn't wait for the game to be launched and have me turn off the rest of the world yet again and dive into their masterpiece. The result was, well, wasn't that.
Should we talk about Dying Light now? This is so weird. You know this feeling? Have you ever been addicted to a game? Or, not addicted. You're playing a game a lot, but you're not enjoying it that much. You're not enjoying it that much, but you just keep playing. And don't say League. Okay? It's just you play it and you're like, I've been playing a lot of Dying Light. I plan now to reinstall Dying Light 1 because something about this game ain't right. There's something not quite right. It's not quite right.
When I look at the Steam reviews for Dying Light 2, I see two types of people. Those who think that the game is just fine, great even if you look hard enough in the reviews, and those who see some serious flaws in the game. I happen to fall in with the latter group of people. I did not enjoy my time in Dying Light 2 whatsoever. In fact, by the end of the game, I was just begging for it to be over because I was having so little fun.
Welcome back to Dying Light 2. In this video, I want to talk to you about why the game absolutely sucks. And that doesn't come from a gameplay perspective. The gameplay is actually pretty fun. However, the game does suck.
So, before I start this video, I have to say this. I have to get this out of the way. I'm really not trying to shit all over this game. I really want Techland to succeed with the project and do everything they can to make Dying Light 2 just as much of a success, if not bigger, than the original Dying Light. So, like, if you're looking for nothing but high praise or dumpster fire of me crapping all over this game, I'm not going to give you either. I suggest you look elsewhere for that type of content. Believe me, it exists on YouTube. It's been there for a long time, and it's still going to be there.
There are no good Sonic the Hedgehog games.
Super true.
What I want for this video to do is to just reflect on what I saw as a die-hard fan of Dying Light, who sunk hundreds and hundreds of hours into the games, both the first and the second. Believe me, I've sunk a lot of time into this.
Gentlemen, we are dealing with someone here who has absolutely no life.
I don't have a f***ing life. Like, I know, it's sad. So, E3 2018. This is the first time that we got to see a good look at Dying Light 2, and needless to say, absolutely lost my mind, screaming like a little girl, and prepared to witness heaven in the form of Techland's Magnificent just come out. So already my expectations were as high as I could possibly set them. I mean, Dying Light 1 set the stage for the developers and provided us with such an expansion on what Dead Island laid the foundation for. Like, yes, Dead Island is cool, but compare that to Dying Light. Nice. Not really much of a fair comparison. And unfortunately, this is where the good things end. So following the E3 release of 2018, development started to give me really, really mixed feelings. I was pleasantly surprised to see polls from Techland's Twitter, the Dying Light Twitter to be exact, asking for suggestions for the next game. Like, I took that as a really good sign. Like, usually developers don't go out of their way to post on Twitter polls about the first game, like, hey guys, what do you want improved in this? I think that's really good communication between the community and the developers, and I'm all for that. However, things started to get concerning as the years went by. So the game was delayed once in January of 2020. They didn't give a release date, and then again in May of 2021, and which they gave a release date this time of December of 2021, and then it got pushed again until February of 2022. Like, okay, I understand, like, COVID happened, and it was a really bad thing. I totally get that. But when you delay a game, like, 3 different times, it kind of just gives the wrong impression. This, combined with allegations of sexual misconduct from one of the game's developers, Chris Avellone, as well as Paweł Singer, the lead writer of Dying Light 2, departing a year before the game was released. In addition to many other employees from Techland coming out and saying, and I quote, Techland is masked by an autocratic management, poor planning, and a toxic work culture that trickles down from the top.
Ooh, that's gonna be a big yikes for me, dog.
One source went as far as to say, quote, whenever an expert starts advising things that are not aligned with the board's agenda, they slowly get isolated from the project and responsibilities. That leads them to leaving, eventually getting fired. To make a career at Techland, you had to be subversive. 20 people in 2 months left Techland, and another source went on to say, quote, Dying Light 2's narrative has been rewritten 6 times or so. That wasn't... Oh,
I don't like this really one bit.
I remember following No Man's Sky's development and how much of a disappointment that was on initial release.
Oh, for fuck's sake! You don't it up! Fucking Minecraft in space!
And it really felt like with all of these other factors adding up, it was pretty much going to be the same thing. And nevertheless, whatever, I kept my head up high. I thought, you know what, that's fine. Oh my fucking god. I feel like Cyberpunk 2077 is the main reason I was so scared for Dying Light 2's development. When I heard delays, I thought of this. And I really didn't want to, but I couldn't get it out of the back of my mind no matter how much I tried that something like that would happen. And this is what we got.
What the hell is this?
So yeah, it ended up being like Cyberpunk did. No! During the first few days of its release, Techland was on damage control pretty much. Patching bugs and glitches was in the initial launch of the game, and I just couldn't bring myself to touch it because I couldn't enjoy it. Anyway, so we'll just fast forward after damage control. So, I don't know what Techland was thinking here. This was a really drastic change from the first game. Element in the second installment is that you'll turn into a zombie at night without the assistance of some UV lights. So you had to plan your night runs more carefully and be sure to be stocked up on items that boost the time you could spend in the dark.
About that, on behalf of all its whores, bandits, and idiots, I christen you a citizen of Villedor.
I'm like, okay, I understand you want to like add a fresh twist to the game, change things up, spice things up, you know, make it different. But this doesn't really make sense to me, and I'll explain why. Like, how exactly does being in the dark after being bitten by a zombie mean that you'll turn then, but being in daylight you're completely fine? Like in the first game, there's always that fear of the infection. Crane's always fighting that urge to take over into a zombie. You can suppress it with antizin, but it doesn't. It delays the inevitable. That pressure of turning into a zombie is still there. You never know when that's going to happen. Every other piece of media I've seen with zombies in it always acknowledges the rule that if a zombie bite infects you, unless treated, you're gonna be turned into a zombie eventually, regardless of how bright it is outside. Okay, let's all stop and think for a moment. What's the best aspect of any first-person shooter game? You guessed it, shooting the absolute shit out of things. However, Techland had a different take on this. They decided they wanted to leave little to no guns in Dying Light 2. And by little to no guns, I mean they have one gun in the game, and I'll get to that. Don't you worry, I'll get to that. So here's their half-assed Twitter response about it. They didn't really come out and say this, which I personally thought was lazy, especially since they never said while they were working on the game that Dying Light 2 wasn't going to have guns. It was never really directly said, yeah, we're not going to have guns whatsoever in this game. I'm pretty sure if they did say that, the development sales would have declined, and that's kind of why they didn't. And for those interested about the lore and why there's no guns, because there is lore, surprisingly, here's a quick little clip from the game that explains that.
What happened here?
That is where the riots started. People were terrified. How could they protect themselves and their families? There was massive unrest. So, a curfew was put in place, and homes were raided to ensure no one was hiding any weapons. Punishment for those who didn't comply was quite severe. So they confiscated the civilians' weapons. Private ownership of any sort of firearm and its ammunition was forbidden thereafter. The armies started shooting at people. Panic broke out. And of course, things only got worse. The riots escalated. It was the beginning of the end.
So you're saying that Pratt made a bad call, taking people's guns away?
Hard to know for sure, but it didn't end well for anyone. In fact, the main irony is that the army soon ran out of ammunition. And just like that, firearms became obsolete.
Okay. Here's my response to that. If Fallout 4, a post-apocalyptic game set years after civilization collapses after a huge-ass nuke, even if they aren't state of the art, even if they're scraps, then absolutely Dying Light 2 can have them. Now, remember what I said earlier about Dying Light 2 having one gun? Yeah. It's a gun. A craftable, usable gun. Okay, this just frustrates me even more. Okay, Techland, like, come on now, stop pissing me off like that. Like, no. If Techland wants to be so intent on not having guns, even though it would be really boring, then go for it. Like, I don't care. Like, you know what? You're going all in on the idea, go in on it anyway. You can't say all this stuff and then have the gun, a craftable one at that, in the game. As I said, You can't have one foot in the door and one in the other. It just totally defeats the purpose of one or the other. Like, have guns or don't. So, yeah, you remember the poll I referenced earlier? Yeah.
Ah, boy, here we go.
So, one of these polls here was talking about the grappling hook, whether or not to nerf it or what it was just fine. So, like, from the poll here, everything looks fine. Like, you'd expect the grappling hook from Dying Light to be more or less the same. Like, obviously, there would be a few little changes, but it was really fun to traverse around with. You get pretty high up easily. It makes moving around the environment so much more fun. And we can't get one thing. We can't get one thing. This might as well be titled Piece of Shit with a Rope Hook. It literally just swings you around from surface to surface. It's such a downgrade from the grappling hook from the first game, considering you could just swing into anywhere within your reach and then just get zip-lined right to it. And you made a poll asking what you should do about the grappling hook, and the poll came back, leave it the same. You literally could have done pretty much the same thing from the first game, probably make it so you can upgrade it to its full potential. Boom, call it a day, folks, like, mission complete. But no, that was too easy. Let's swing around like fucking Tarzan. Like, let's go back to the something specific. Let's go back to the stealth kill. So in Dying Light 1, there was a way that you could sneak up behind a zombie, crack his neck, and then move on. In doing that. Dying Light 2 is not that simple. So you have two options. You can sneak up behind a zombie and just regularly crack his neck. Or you can sneak up behind a zombie and then choose to stab the zombie and kind of like slice him. But it really doesn't matter which one you choose because both are too long of an animation, to be honest. Like Dying Light 1, you snap the neck, move on. You could do that pretty well quickly. It's just I just find it too long of an animation. And I really don't know what the point of that was. So I have to say, in conclusion, like, Dying Light 2 is a game that really let me down. And I'm gonna live with you guys. I hate that I have to dislike the game. I really do. Like, I mean, I know I've said a lot of bad stuff about the game, but, like, it's still mediocre and still passable. Like, I can still pick up this game and play it. But how do you put out Dying Light 1, have it be the masterpiece that it is, and then give us just a meh game like that? Like, honest opinion, if they just added like 2 or 3 more guns, even if ammunition had to be scarce, fix the grappling hook, improve the combat system, and actually make the game worthy of a sequel to 2, then you'd have an awesome game. But I feel like at this point it's not gonna happen. We're already past the initial stage of Techland doing damage control and fixing all their bugs. I feel like the game is going to be what it is now. And I really hate to say that. And I pray that I'm wrong. I pray that Techland fixes this. I pray that they try to make the game just as good as 1. Because I know they can. I just hope it actually happens. However, I'm not going to leave this video on a bad note. We do have hope for a good zombie game.
Let's wait for the happy ending.
Jimmy? Humanity's survival depends on the red gold pumping through my veins.
Well, sounds like you're the star of the show now.
This motherfucker! Oh, shit.
Take notes, Techland. That is how you make a good zombie game.